Welcome to Self-Care for Men. My name is Ed Cardinal, and it's a pleasure to be joined by Matthew Martin today. Matthew has been in the theme park industry for decades. He's worked in that industry for decades, and he's also published a new book called The Pancake King. And just a little background about how I know Matthew. He was a neighbor of my wife and I back from 2010 to 2013, and it's interesting because about that time as Matthew knows, we stopped watching TV. We got rid of our cable. But as we looked out our window to Matthew's home, his townhouse, or out our kitchen door, we had like a reality show. We had the Martin family reality show. And it was amazing the things that we witnessed out our windows. We had Friday night pizza night, movie night. We had dance parties. We had biking adventures and all sorts of weather. And it was just for my wife and I, we got to know the Martin family, and particularly Matthew. It was such a pleasure to watch their family, all the things they did together, watch their children grow up. Watch their oldest Griffin ride his bicycle for the first time, and we were quite sad when they moved away. But we've stayed in touch, and Matthew actually had that idea of the Pancake King back then, and I remember him talking about it. So, Matthew, congratulations on your book, and also not giving up on your dream, because it's 2010 or 20 now, and it was back in 2010. I mean, we're talking more than 10 years that you had that idea percolating in your imagination. So how did it come about, the idea of the Pancake King, and what is the Pancake King?
So the Pancake King came about, first of all, the title of the book is Every Dad Can Be the Pancake King, because there's a children's book called The Pancake King, which is not this. This is a book for men. It's not a, well, yes, there's a lot of fun stuff in it for kids. It is really a book for men to connect fathers to their children and have fun doing it. But the Pancake King came about when my son Griffin was 2. I decided to give mom a break on Saturday mornings, and I'd take him out to the diner. And we'd go to the diner just up the street in Lake Arrowhead, and I'd sit him down, and he's a very inquisitive, really brilliant child. And we'd discuss anything and everything. We'd discuss how to get to the moon, what's in a leaf, what makes snow, all the things. And just, it was that bond between a man and his son. And that was utterly fantastic. Then when he was four, my daughter was born when he was 2. And when he was 4, she started competing with him for I called it dude breakfast, which was daddy and son, the 2 dudes going out for breakfast. So when my daughter was born, then we started alternating. And so dude breakfast became dude breakfast on one weekend, and then daddy-daughter breakfast on the other. Then I had a 3rd child, and it was unmanageable. And so you couldn't split it up 3 ways. And so then I just started doing what was dude breakfast. I started doing it in the home. And I'm a very creative person. I'm in the theme park industry, but when I create, I would go into the fridge. I don't follow recipes, or I didn't then. And I would see whatever was laying around, and then I'd create something in the moment. And so I started doing pancakes, which was the daddy breakfast answer to dude breakfast, to the dude breakfast out. So it still was that captured time with the kids, but it was, it was a lot cheaper, and B, it allowed me to host and handle all 3 kids at once. So one morning I was making apple pancakes, and excuse me, frog. I was making apple pancakes, and when you cut an apple, I'd cut the slices off and dice it all up, and then there'd be the apple core, and I cut the apple core in half, and every apple core, some people know, some people don't, has a 5-pointed star in the center. It's a fractal. And so I cut open the apple core, and I went, because I was putting it in my compost, and I went, oh, look, kids, a fractal. And they went, wow, Dad, cool, a fractal. What's a fractal? And so then I went down into my library and pulled out my books on fractals. I have a bunch of art books, and So I brought them up, spread them out on the counter, continued to make the pancakes. The kids continued to help. And then I started talking through what is a fractal and showed them that what's inside the apple core is also in a star pine. And then we looked at cobwebs and how those compare to sand patterns in the desert, and had these really great free roaming conversations. And the kids were really involved, really immersed. I was connecting to them. They were connecting to me. And then we had such a great time. We said, okay, that's it. We're going apple picking this weekend. And so we, I gathered everybody up for the weekend, and then we went out apple picking, and we talked about our apple pancake experience. We got caramel apples. We went and, as a family, we went out and we picked apples. And then it was the following time when I went to make pancakes again, I had this epiphany of what I had just done with apples, that it was this unbelievable experience for us as a family, and really for me as a father, to connect to my kids. And I went into my wife and I walked in and I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book on making pancakes. And then I listed, because I had done a lot of children's museum work, there's certain ways that you give information. Kids want to know how big, how much, how many. When I worked on Legoland, everybody wants to know, how many bricks are in that 15-foot tall giraffe. And, there's 187,000, and kids are fascinated. And the adult were fascinated. So the book started to go that way, where I realized as a dad, I'm going to roam around here, but as a dad, back up, when my daughter was 2, I realized that I didn't know who she was. And we had stopped connecting. And because I would come in and I'd see her, but suddenly she was growing up and she didn't know me, I didn't know her. And so I said, I gotta make a change. I gotta do something about this. So I picked her up and took her into my room, and every morning from then on, I would set her on the edge of the bed and she would pick out my shirts. Whatever shirt I was gonna wear today, she would pick it out. And suddenly we had those moments where we were bonding and connecting again. And that became a callback for Pancake King, because I realized I pride myself on being a good dad. There's nothing I put in front of being a good father, and also a fun and interesting dad. So I realized that if that is the tenet and the platform that I stand on, for the guys that don't, and I have good friends, they're good guys, but they don't know how to access their kids. They're not the crazy crackpot theme park designer that I am. They don't work in children's museum industry. They don't study Howard Gardner and the theory of multiple intelligences. And I have, and so that was kind of second nature to me. And that's when that epiphany of, okay, here's something that's really valuable. It's cool, it's fun, it's full of movie quotes, games, and activities, but it's for guys that, if you are a father and all you know is your job, and then sports, and you want to take your son out and you play catch with him, that's kind of the stereotype how you be with your kids. There is so much more to you, the dad, that you can share, but most dads have trouble breaking down that barrier. So what I thought was enormously invaluable in the book was that I give you tools. What guy doesn't want a tool? We're, guys in the shop, we like our toolbox, we like our power tools, and we like easy answers. So Pancake King became a version of that. And then there was other elements of it where, like my father, when my mom passed away in 2004, my dad, who was a genius and who has passed away since, but he couldn't cook. He didn't know what to do. But he had a bread machine. And a bread machine, you just take 6 ingredients, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, press go, and out comes really delicious bread. And he could do that. And so this became a smorgasbord of that. Okay, you can't ask a guy to hand make pralines every Saturday morning and then make this fantastic 5-star breakfast. No, it's got to be in that bread machine mentality. So I streamlined all the recipes so that it's simple tools, a half cup measuring cup only, and 1 tablespoon. Those are the only utensils you use to measure ingredients in. And in that bread machine mentality, I give it to you so that you measure all your dry ingredients in first. And then the tablespoon, once you've done your dry goods, you put the oil in it, that goes in. And then after the oil goes molasses or honey or whatever the recipe calls for. and then that comes out of the tablespoon. So as a guy, you're not doing all these in-between steps, you're not washing a bunch of dishes, and it's something that you actually will repeat. So it really, once I started to see those things and I started to realize that I knew these things, like put the honey in after the oil, I started writing them down and saying, these are really valuable tips that guys are going to want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just became a really fun thing to do. And then during daddy breakfasts on Saturdays, it stopped being just Saturday and it started being 2, 3, 4 times a week. And it became great fun. And it became, one of these, you talked about some of the things we do, family movie night on Friday nights and all that. It became a ritual. And part of I'm huge on ritual and tradition. I started building in all these weird little quirky things into the ritual, like taste testers. Anytime I'd cook one and then I'd bellow, taste testers, just like Oscar from Shark Slayer. And then the kids would all come running out of the woodwork, and then I'd rip it up and throw it to them. And that was another thing, dad throwing food, mom, oh, you stop that, no throwing food. And the kids, because dad's throwing food. And nothing better than that taste tester. And that went on that goes on still. And all of those things I started building in, because if it's not fun, the kids are going to lose interest. But if it's fun, and then also all the recipes, when you read the recipe, it says add 1 egg, mix, buttermilk, kid stir, then other ingredients, kid stir. It says that in print on the recipe, which means, first of all, when the kids are little, you got to get them involved. But then it actually says that in the book. And so as a dad, you go, no, I can't do it. See right there, it says kid stir. So that's you. And then the kids started fighting over who got to be daddy's helper. And what a difference that is, where your kids want to be with you and want to be the helper and want to be involved. And then there's all kinds of games built in, like what are the secret ingredients, sniffing things on, a sniff box, and what's the difference between cinnamon and clove, and just things that really test your senses. And then it just evolved into this thing. And then that's where we are today. That's a really long answer for how to get started.
It's awesome. You had talked about how most men don't know how to be fathers, and I think it's because our fathers didn't know how to be fathers. Where did you get this ability to be a great father? Was your father a good father?
My dad was a good father.
Yeah.
But he was a genius. He was a scientific genius. He's what kept our submarines quiet, my dad. But no tools. And, he only knew what he knew. Right. And so he had a huge, huge heart. But I always wanted to play more, and I wanted more time with him. And I realized, and I say this in the introduction of the book, I think, that the best time I had with my dad was when he was grilling. He would grill, he would make his own hamburgers. He'd roll oatmeal into them and onion and garlic and spices. And it was one of my mom's favorite things to have. And then he would hand pound them, and he would swear only by charcoal on the grill. And so that took a certain amount of time. And he'd have me come out and help him at the grill, put in the charcoal, set everything up. And then there was this like 20-minute window while the coals were burning where he stood outside, and we'd be out in the backyard. And then we'd play bocce ball or croquet or just hang out and talk. It was precious, because his time as a scientist, his time, he worked 80 hours a week. And so he was never around in that, when he was at work. So that time with him was so precious to me. And I'll never forget that, because that to me is the answer in the book. And I say, how do you be a better father? It's not, it's not at the grill. We need to take ownership of the griddle, because it gives you that window of time as often as you want, irregardless of the weather. And that grilling, as a New Englander, you grill in the summer, and then when it starts to get fall, it gets too damn cold, and you don't grill. So I had this narrow window of the really special, precious time with my father. And I was one of three kids. So I was competing for his time in those short, precious windows. So for me, I think one of the bigger parts of being a better father was acknowledging that there needed to be more of those windows. Right. And that's why that story about my daughter, realizing I didn't know who she was and that I wouldn't let that stand. So I had to make something happen to capture more time with her so that I had more one-to-one, because at that time I was doing a lot of traveling.
Right. Yeah. Your children will never forget those traditions, and I'm sure you're still practicing some of them. And I know your oldest is off to college now, and I'm sure when he comes home, he's looking forward to the breakfasts again. And
well, what's funny is, so he's now 6'5", and he's going to University of Florida, and the other two kids. So when just finishing the book, I had to take pictures of all the pancakes. So I was making all the recipes again, which was great fun to do them. But it was this, a recipe a day for 3 weeks. And the kids were hilarious because they would take pictures of their plate, all piled high with pancakes, sausage, and applesauce, and shoot them to their brother as a taunt. Because he's, meanwhile languishing away, eating diner food at the cafeteria. Yeah. So, yeah. So
the book also it provides you the opportunity, that time in the kitchen and preparing the breakfast, provides you that opportunity to spend time with your children. Also, parenting tips. You talked about manners. Talk a little bit more about that. How you incorporate that into your time with your children.
So as a parent, I have friends that have kids and they do don't make me count to 100. I'm not that parent. I'm the parent that says, don't do that. That's wrong. And when you find out something's wrong, that's it. And then you don't transgress after that. But I believe in a ton of love and rules. And so part of that is just training. And again, it comes down to tools. And so things that I learned early on, like when my oldest was little, we didn't say, oh, look, that's a car, when he's just learning to speak. We didn't say that's a car, or that's a truck. We said that's a wheel loader, that's a grader, that's a paver, that's a dump truck. And kids are sponges. They'll pick up anything you tell them. And you can either tell them that, and then they know exactly what all those trucks are, or they just know that's a truck, that's a truck, that's a truck, that's a truck. Well, it's the same with manners. And one of the funny things we did is I thought about, in my house when I was growing up, you had to clear your dishes. But it was this endless, you get up from the table, because there wasn't a rule in place. You get up from the table, you'd be halfway to the kitchen, and my mom would bark at us, hey, clear your dishes. Every single damn meal. And it's not because we're not bright or we didn't, it just, it wasn't part of the ethos. So we said, you can't get down unless you ask. And that's a common, I'd say half the families out there say you have to say, please may be excused. But then I realized I want them rinsing their bowl. I want them rinsing their plate, and there's no reason why they can't put their cutlery in the batter bowl or in the dishwasher. And so I dropped those little parenting knowledge bombs that you can, it's your house, your rules, and the kids don't know or care. Right. And in fact, if they're helping with cleanup, they're more involved. They feel like they're more part of it. And also, again, it goes back to, you're the dad. And one of my favorite lines in the book is, you're their father, you're the Pancake King, you're not their damn busboy. So when the kids were little, if you were going to get down, and my kids still say it today, they say, please may I be excused to clear my dishes. And why wouldn't you do that? Right. Because then, and they don't know, they don't care, and it's fine. I'll get down, I'll clear my dishes. It's polite. It's just, hey, you guys made dinner, I benefited, I ate from it, and now I'll go clear my dishes. And then as a dad trying to make this breakfast, suddenly you don't have this huge, horrible mess. You're not being busboy, then you're not being wash-up guy. And then that gives you more time, and the kids are in and around you. And I give you simple tricks like the batter bowl. It's a glass. I recommend, in fact, I don't recommend, I tell you, use a glass Pyrex 8-cup big glass dish for the batter bowl. It's sturdy. You can kind of smash it without smashing it. And then you get all your stuff on, it goes in the sink, and then all your tools drop right in it. When the kids are done, please may I be excused to clear my dishes, they go in there, their cutlery goes in the batter bowl, they rinse their one plate over the batter bowl, and the plate goes in the dishwasher. Then the cutlery knocks all the gunk, all the sticky batter off your bowl while they're rinsing. When all their dishes are in the dishwasher, you pour out that batter bowl, rinse yours, and you're done. It's clean. And that took what, 2 minutes? And now you, the dad, have more time to go and play with the kids.
Right.
And I think that's invaluable because it carves out that precious time for you. It makes it efficient. The kids are involved, so they take ownership in the process. And there's something about the batter bowl, they think they're getting off. They think they're getting off easy because they don't actually have to load their cutlery into the upper, into the rack. They just get to chuck it in the batter bowl. And then, so they feel good about it. They think they're getting off, and you get everything cleaned. And also the cutlery, because it's jangling around in the batter bowl, all comes clean.
There's also another lesson in that I know that is important to you, and that's conservation, conserving. Right. Talk about that, because I know living next to you that was a big part of the lessons that you taught and how you lived your life. You had a compost bin in the back that I inherited when you left, and
That's right.
I used it. We're moving now, but I've used it right up until the time we're moving in. So talk a little bit more about why that's important to you.
So there's a few things that there's, I, over time, and I was not this way to start. Over time, I really took on comes from living in California. You take on a different mindset, but really about the earth. So how to protect the earth, and that comes down to being a good steward of your resources, the earth itself, and then reduce, reuse, recycle. So there's no reason to put stuff. It's really fascinating story. The reason why one of the supplements to composting is when I worked at the Henry Ford, they had done this thing about Atari, where they dug up an old Atari. There's this whole conspiracy theory about, Atari died because of the ET game, and stuff was buried out in the desert. And this all happened. Anyway, a bunch of this Atari gear got buried out in the desert. It got all dug up. And when they were digging it up, there were these huge garbage bags full of garbage, and some were full of grass clippings. So in your head, you think, oh, grass clipping is going to biodegrade. They opened up that bag, and it was like it was cut yesterday. 25 years, and you think, oh, grass clippings are going to just degrade. But no, when they're sealed up, there's no air in there. There's none of the little microorganisms to chew it up and do what happens in composting. It's just filling the dump. And you watch movies like Idiocracy or Wall-E, where they show mountains of trash and garbage. That's where we're headed. Mm-hmm. And again, to the dad, I might be lazy, I might not be. I can't figure out whether I'm just like being efficient. So you think about, you're the one, or your kids are the ones who have to hump the garbage out to the corner. Well, if you don't throw all that stuff in the garbage, you're not humping giant bags out to the road. If you take all the clippings and things that you use in the kitchen, put it in the compost pail, break that down, then even if you never grow a damn thing, like if you don't garden, who cares? There's all these studies about from where we've been growing and farming, we suck all the nutrients out of the earth. We suck them all out of our yard, all of that. So if you just put a compost heap, even in one spot in your yard, maybe it's not saving the world, maybe it's not free fertilizer for you, but that one area of the earth, you've revitamized with all the nutrients from your scrap pile, from making breakfast, from making lunches, from all of that. And it's not going into the dump. We're not going to end up like Wall-E, where we have to get off the planet because you have piles of garbage the size of the Sears Tower.
Right. Right.
So that is important. It's very important to me. And why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Exactly. And it's not as hard as people think it is. And as you said, we compost, so we only have to empty our garbage, once a week or once every 2 weeks because of that.
Right. And it's again, having a good tool. I go back to tools because, and I tell the story of when I was growing up, we composted because my dad had a garden. We were so poor when I was growing up. He had a garden. I'm not convinced he liked gardening. He had a garden because it helped feed us. And we had this green Tupperware bowl on the kitchen counter. And when you lifted the lid off that thing, it was so disgusting. We all hated putting stuff in it because you hated to be the one that had to open it up because there's 2 or 3 day old slimy, gross stuff in there. So don't do that. There's compost pails, crocks, they're called, that have charcoal filters in the lid, and it's no big deal. And they look nice on your counter. You can have a white one. They've got fluted Corinthian column looking stuff on them, or stainless steel, which is the one I have, but it's got a 2 charcoal filter in the lid so it doesn't smell.
Right.
And so there's no reason not to do that because it sits right by your sink. And so you do all your potato peelings and your, all the tips off your cucumbers and whatever else you're doing. No meat products, but every vegetable, anything goes in there. And then you stick that in your compost. And after like 8 or 9, and there are people who will tell you to turn it and lay paper towels on it and buy maggots and buy aphids or I don't know what. You don't have to do that. It will break down in compost and turn into, as you know, after like you get this like dark, rich brownie batter looking stuff that is just, when you look at it, you go, oh my God, that's fertile. That is just nutrient rich. And there's something really gratifying about that.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. You were born and raised in Boston, and I know the book has a connection to the sports of New England. How did you incorporate that into your book?
Well, so there's a couple things that go with that. I used to love Stephen King. I still do. But Stephen King, he wrote almost everything about being in Maine, unapologetic. And when I was studying him for my master's thesis, I studied him and 2 other horror masters, Wes Craven and I've forgotten the third. Clive Barker. When I looked at that, he said, write about what you know, and it's easiest to do that. And the counsel I got from a really great guy who used to be in Rhode Island, but now he's moved to California, Stuart Horwitz of Book Architecture. He said, the most important thing is for to be authentic and be your voice. Readers are going to want to hear you. You're who you are. You're an interesting person. You quote movies all the time. You have this varied experience. You travel the world, and you're this crazy dad. They want to hear your voice, so be authentic. And so authentically, I am a New England sports fan. Now, to be accurate, I was born in Indiana, and I moved to Boston when I was in first grade. But really, to your point, I grew up in Boston. I am a New Englander. So I just unapologetically, everything about sports is about New England sports. And so some of them are really funny. Some of them are very obvious and in your face. In each of the recipes, it starts with, all but one start with 1 egg beaten like something. And I always liked that it says, because I used to say, oh, let's beat that, like, you hear beat a dead horse, but then I thought this is a real opportunity to be funny. And so all the recipes start with 1 egg beaten like something. And so that became my ghost in the machine for my friends and family. So I asked all my friends and family to give me their favorite. I said, give me your favorite beatdown. And so you have some which are obviously the 2004 Red Sox beating the Yankees in the greatest Red Sox, baseball upset ever. Right. And recently the New England Patriots beating, coming back against the Atlanta Falcons.
Right.
But there's some really funny ones that I'm not right like that, but very quickly you're like, hey, wait a second. So one of the recipes is called jumpers. And actually I refer to it as jumpers. I say, it's like jumper, means, a shot, but it also means sweater in England. It's a jumper, but it's pronounced like the way Tommy Heinsohn used to say, that Santa has no business being out by the ark. He's a Santa. He has no business taking that jumper. And so, I have references like that, which are obviously New England. But then there's some, like on the jumper recipe, it uses old Wheaties. One of the recipes that came about was we'd have cereal and Wheaties are total. You'd always get down to the bottom, and we called it the dust. There'd be that like 2 inches down at the bottom that you just wouldn't eat because it was down at the bottom. And then you'd let it get stale. And as somebody who's frugal and was raised poor and, use all parts of the buffalo, I wanted to use that stuff. So I came up with a really good recipe called Jumpers that uses Wheaties. Also, that was my avenue to talk about sports with my own children. We'd talk about the cover of the Wheaties box and who was on the various covers, and used to make it when the kids were going to t-ball or soccer practice. We'd have jumpers because I say, this is a sports recipe. This is one that gives you hops. And I talked about the cover and the history of the cover. So in the book itself, there's 4 different sections. There's the recipes spread on one side, and then on the other side, there's 4 different sections. Look it up, what it is, cool, saddle up. And some are historical and some are just content. And the content on Jumpers was the history of the Wheaties box and how did that come about. And it started in the 30s, and over time, they just started putting sports superstars on the cover. And then that became a thing. There became cachet. So I talked about how that came about. And, here's some of the more notable figures on the Wheaties box. Not Michael Jordan, but
Larry Bird.
Havlicek, Larry Bird, Big Papi, Tom Brady, all the sports greats.
Yeah.
And again, unapologetic and clearly heinously biased. So I think that's a lot of fun. It's always fun, for us as New Englanders to quarrel with New Yorkers in the whole Red Sox Yankees thing. And there's the occasional, like I spent some time in Michigan, so there's I dropped some hints about Michigan, Ohio State rivalry, but really it's New England. And there's some, because I went to Syracuse, I do say some things that are about the Big East, although now Syracuse isn't part of the Big East anymore, they're ACC, but I do drop some very Syracuse-only favoritism. But I think for New Englanders, it's going to be a hoot.
That's awesome. You had mentioned, lastly, you'd mentioned something about travel, and I know you've incorporated something about travel in the book.
Yeah.
How did you incorporate that in?
So when it first started out, like going apple picking, that was very regional and that was close. But my wife and I have always, really found it. Yes, I'm a theme park guy. I design theme park attractions for a living. I worked on Hagrid's motorcycle adventure, motorbike adventure. Let me get that correct. And I like nothing better than the theme parks, Universal in particular. But there's more. There's a lot more out there. And we always liked the Americana kind of stuff, the world's largest ball of string, House of Mud, stuff straight out of Chevy Chase and Vacation. And then festivals and, big events where you go and like, that was a really great day. Maker Faire, a really great day. You go to the Carrot Festival in Holt. It's a really great day. Pumpkin Chunkin' in Delaware. It's a really great day, and it's full of fanfare and stuff. And it's kind of over here. It's not what you think about, but it incorporates, people and fun and atmosphere. And so I thought, how can that work into the book? So on every recipe, there's a saddle up, and there's some extra saddle ups. And that's where I encourage you to get out, think about what you did. It's really to duplicate that Apple experience I had, because it was so powerful. And it gives you an opportunity to think outside the box. And again, it's tools. So what are we going to do this weekend? Oh, actually, there's a festival over here, or you can go if you want to. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to line all these up and say, okay, I'm going to do all the recipes, and we're going to go to Costa Rica to do banana plantation tour, and we're going to go to Hawaii, and we're going to bungee jump off the tower in Auckland in New Zealand, and we're going to go longboarding and all of those things. And that's going to be really cool. And I also realized that part of how I started writing it once I got that bug sorted out is that it really plays like a television show, which appeals to me, that the book, because the book is really unique. It's not written or developed or visually like anything else. So I liked that aspect, that it also is written kind of like a television show. So it's almost like each recipe is an episode. So there's cooking, there's the cooking aspect of it. There's something funny. I always tell you something funny. And then there's information, and that's important too. There's two information bits, the what it is and look it up. And the what it is so molasses is taken from, what is molasses? Oh, I went into the store to get molasses, and the person working the store is like, what's molasses? I'm like, what do you mean, what's molasses? How do you not know what molasses is? So what is molasses? So she didn't know, so I should tell you. So molasses is what happens when you spin sugar and molasses comes out of it. And so that's what it is. But then look it up is something that there's interesting and fun facts about everything. And so part of that is, one, I give, again, it's a tool. I give you a nugget so you know something. So you're the dad that knows stuff. But also it's really freaking interesting. The Great Molasses Flood of 1919 in Boston, that's a real thing. And so that's in the look it up section. Did you know that this giant, a 14-foot tsunami wave of molasses, when this giant tower was either vandalized or just came apart, and it killed people? This huge flood through Boston of molasses, and it's called the Great Molasses Flood of 1919. So there's always something to learn, and I think that's important too with your kids. And that's, you were asking about these parenting tips. I think it's really important that kids know it's cool to learn, and that there's always something cool about everything. Even about molasses, there's something really cool. Even about chia, vanilla. Who knew? Vanilla is an orchid, and it only blooms for a day, and it actually has to be hand pollinated. What? And this stuff is really cool. Also, I give you something either fun or really cool to do. So it's not just making the pancakes that's fun, because you can cook with your parents, and that's fun. Get them involved. The daughter always does cookies with the mom, and the guy is always trying to get the kid to learn the grill. Come on, son. So there's value in the cooking aspect, but then I make sure that there's something else for you to do. Like when I explain microwaves. What are microwaves? Where do they come from? How did we get here? I show you how to make plasma from a grape in your microwave. And it's really simple. I didn't come up with it. I found it on the internet. You slit a grape kind of halfway down, cut the tip off, leave it slightly connected. I recommend putting a glass over it, because otherwise you'll end up with plasma balls in your microwave. But 15 seconds later, you made plasma in your microwave. And that's really cool. And again, that's an opportunity to get your kids to say, wow, there's science, there's electrons, there's scientific principles going on here. And maybe they're interested, maybe they're not. But when you're working with your kids, then you are right there when you're making those triggers. And maybe that changes their life in that moment.
Matthew, if someone wanted to order your book, how could they do so?
So they go to, I'm going to put it on screen. I don't know if you're just recording this, but so they go to thepancakekingdom.com.
Awesome.
So it's www.thepancakekingdom.com.
Awesome.
And it's on Facebook and Instagram. And
awesome. And the full title of the book is Every Dad Can Be the Pancake King.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Every dad can be the Pancake King.
Awesome. Well, I ordered mine. I'm looking forward to getting it. You said it should be on its way soon, and looking forward. Again, congratulations and not giving up on your dream, and looking forward to reading it and perusing it. And make sure you check it out. Purchase one, and remember, you can be a Pancake King too.
Yeah, every dad can indeed be the Pancake King.
Excellent. Make sure you subscribe to Self Care for Men's YouTube channel by hitting the subscribe button below, and also follow, like, and comment on our Facebook and Instagram. And also check out Matthew's Facebook and Instagram page also, and that's the
Pancake Kingdom. Pancake Kingdom. I know, unfortunately I couldn't get the Pancake King, but the Pancake Kingdom is the umbrella, and there's much more to come from this. I'm so excited about this as a platform and a brand. There's more books and a TV show and restaurant.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Matthew.
Thank you, Ed.
Talking to you. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend.